Welcome, everybody, once again to another installment of the show Will Go On. We're going to talk about the new gig economy today. We are in episode 16, and 4 more to go. So it seems like this will never end, but it is going to end, and we were going to do something different after this month. So thank you for being here with me today. And for if you are new, and we are still getting new folks, which amazes me, but it also pleases me very much. I am Tom Stimson. I'm a business consultant. The Stimson Group is my company. I can be found in all these places. I've got some newsletters. I own the AV Matters brand. You can find me on Facebook. We've got YouTube videos, blah, 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 blah. Come check us out. I've got a lot of content that I share freely with you guys, and I hope you take advantage of it. Now, this webinar series is sponsored by AVIXA. And AVIXA is the trade association for the audio-visual industry, the entire vertical of the audio-video industry, from manufacturers down to suppliers, technology managers, people who just do AV for a living. They're our people, we're their people, and there's a live events community within AVIXA. Our representative in the membership group is Beth Knight. I hope you reach out to her and ask how you can be more involved. We have a live events council that you can participate in. The live events forum will be next month. There is webinars on a regular basis. We just finished the Infocom Connect trade show, which is still available online for you to go back and see stuff. They do market analysis. It's a certifying body. It's the ANSI ISO certification group that has the CTS certification. They're a standards writing group. I mean, AVIXA is huge, and they're all over the world. You should learn more about it if you have not. We'd love to welcome you into that community. One of the things they do is the Business Survival Exchange, which is a every other Friday Zoom conference where you can join and discuss issues with your peers. You get put into breakout rooms, report back to the main group. Lots of good information there. You should definitely check it out. Let me help. You are welcome to book time with me. I've had this offer since we started this back in March. The offer was to book one free 15-minute phone call with me. Let me help you get through things today. Today, I'm going to talk about a new phase that we're going into, and I am reopening this. Even if you've had a call with me before, if you would like to book another one, we have new stuff to talk about. We have a new horizon for recovery. We need to do some retooling, and for many of you, we'll talk about Plan C of your business in just a minute. I want to continue to help you with that and help you guys survive this and get back to the point where we're thriving. So please feel free to book another conversation with me. I know I'm not working tomorrow because I'm taking a holiday, but next week I'll be back at it, and I look forward to talking to you. So, as I've alluded to, there's been some changes going on. I'm going to rant for just a little bit here. Not too much of a rant because I've calmed down, but we have some uncomfortable truths about our industry that we need to come to grips with, and it's not just about us, about what's going on around us that's going to make our business more and more difficult to do, at least to the point where we feel like we're recovering. And I was hoping to avoid this day's message. But this is not about COVID numbers, except that the lack of consensus about how to manage the pandemic is feeding uncertainty, which does matter to us, because uncertainty is pushing the event economy farther and farther on down the road. And for that reason, I'm being a little bit more pessimistic about what's going to happen for us for the rest of the year. Now, our clients hope for these hybrid events that we've been talking about, and Q3 is not looking good. Hybrid is going to be difficult to pull off in the current climate. We have a lot of resurgence with the opening back up of here in the US in particular. Canada hasn't opened back up yet, so they're not experiencing this. But we are, and it's going to be a setback. It's going to push our recovery down a couple of more months, I believe. Therefore, I expect that a lot of the Q4 events, which we have been hopeful and optimistic that we would be settled into a good hybrid pattern by Q4, I think Q4 is probably going to convert to mostly streaming events. I think we're going to see a lot of the events, in-person events, postponed or put more emphasis on the streaming side. I'm telling you this because you need to get ahead of it. This is not about what's in the news. This is about the trends that we are tracking that's going to affect your clients' best interests. Talk to your clients about the changing trends and how to prop up their streaming side in order to handle more of their audience, get their message out to more people. And maybe there's some additional accommodations that you're going to have to make on the live side, on the hybrid side of this, to make it practical for them to do. We have a responsibility in all of this because we are the event professionals. Most of our clients are not. They do events once or twice a year, and they rely on us to know how to do them well, and in this case, safely. So we need to get ahead of that. I'm hearing lots and more talk about maybe the end of, Q1 or Q2 of 2021 being when our industry starts to get some traction again. A month ago, I thought that was a little pessimistic, and now I'm thinking it might be even a little optimistic. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and we only have to go back to April, in March and April, when major corporations were putting their events off until at least the middle of 2021. So given that some of those corporations announced months ago they wouldn't consider anything in person until summer of 2021, we should watch closely to see if they actually solidify any of those plans or if they push it out even farther. So we've been kind of in plan B for a while. Is there a plan C? For you, you might need to look at that. The folks I've been talking with the past 2 weeks in particular, we're definitely getting into plan C. Things that I'm typically having to remind you, streaming events, that's what we have right now. Whether you do them yourself or you support them, stop making do. Make this yours. This is our business. This is a show. This is live. It's different. It may not be as fun or sexy, but the fact is, it's what we have. And if you don't own it, okay, there are companies out there that do. There are freelancers out there that embrace this. That's where the business is going to go. If you want the business, you're going to have to claim some of the space. Your cash flow, that runway of money, when your money's going to run out, we have to keep pushing it forward. It has to move with the calendar. If you've got another card, you need to play it. If you have another source of cash, if there's another expense that you can cut, if there's that final round of layoffs that you need to commit to, now is the time to do it. Don't wait to prove me right in 3 weeks. Look at it now. Get your head around this now. Make the decision as soon as you're comfortable. I told my group yesterday that one of my coaching groups, is that you need to look at every single expense on your P&L, starting with rent, and question it seriously. Is this really something that I need to look at? Is there another thing that I could possibly do? And ask yourself 3 or 4 times. Don't give up the first time you tell yourself there's nothing we can do about this. Keep trying. That's what Plan C is about. We got to go back and try some more. Strategic partnering. Most of us are not really equipped to own an entire streaming event. We don't have the platform. We don't own all the technology or have all the expertise. We don't create content. We don't do web development. You're going to have to partner with other folks, okay? If you have the opportunity to be the prime contractor on a large streaming event, then you're now in the production management business, and you're going to have to bring in folks and outsource. And that's a little bit about what we'll talk about today, but you've got to get your head around that. A lot of small companies sharing the risk on a large project is a big company. Figure out who the small company that's going to take on this event is, organize those people, and let's go get that work done. You can be afraid of the parts that you don't know, but you can also go out and find people who love that piece of it and are comfortable with it, and you can work together. And that's really what this business is going to be about for quite some time. And in effect, Plan C means you've got to move from defense, you've got to move into some offense. If you've been in a wait and see, if you're waiting for events to come back, you've got some in-person events. I've got comments here that says, hey, I've got a confirmed hybrid in August. I believe you. I hope it holds on. I hope it is still there in August. But what I'm saying is get ahead of it, because if it goes all streaming, there's still value there. There's still an origination site. There's still a job that you can build a lot of profit out of. So quit waiting for things to happen. Figure out what you can make happen and get out there and make it. Start getting on the offense and get out of this waiting game. And then finally, I've got to say, and I don't say this lightly, many of you are still holding on to your furloughed folks. You're giving them updates. You're doing all the right stuff. In the US, the unemployment addendum extra money from the federal government is going to run out. It's not likely to be renewed, though there is hope. But the fact of the matter is, they need to work on their plan C. And if you don't tell them that it's over, they won't do the things that they need to do. Don't let them be surprised on July 25th when you cut them off. Let them know what's going to happen. And you, by doing this, are also letting go of the constraints of your old business model. Everybody needs the opportunity to succeed, and what they need to do that is have good information. I'm trying to give you good information. You have people who need good information from you. It's time to give it to them, okay? I'm not seeing a lot of optimism for anything that looks like normal happening in the next 9 months, okay? 9 months is a long time to wait to get rehired. Let these people know what's going on, but we have a solution, right? We have a gig economy where we can hire people. You're not going to lose all your talent. We're not going to lose all those people, but we are going to lose some great people to other industries. Okay? But start being the business that you need to be. They can hire those folks back on a part-time basis or on a job-by-job basis. So that brings us into this week's discussion, which is the new gig economy. You know, last week we talked about the post-pandemic staffing, and some of you were a bit incredulous when I described the size of a full-time staff needed in a scalable business model. Some of you are already that size. Some of you have been that size and have been running that model and thought you were at a disadvantage, and all of a sudden you're at an advantage. To help you better understand how this will work, we need to talk about the gig economy, and which is, to be honest, it's going to save our industry. The gig economy is going to save us, because your businesses can continue to survive, be a valuable entity, deliver your intellectual property and resources and skills and talents to your audience, to your customers, without the extra burden of full-time staff and the overhead and the obligation and the risk that goes with this. So now next week, I'll just give you a preview. Next week, we're going to dive deeper into the business model that will sustain us in this. You don't have the whole picture yet, but I'm trying to help you absorb this information in the right order. We're building on this every single week. At least I hope I am. And next week, we'll talk more about what that business model really is. And I'll announce that at the end of this webinar, as I always do. So we've got 4 more of these webinars after today. There's a lot of work left to do. So let's get started. Right now, if you have any technical staff left on board, they should be busy every week with billable work. And if your initial reaction to that statement is, well, we don't have billable work yet, Tom, but we're expecting to have work because we have a job confirmed in August, listen to my words again. If you have any technical staff on board, they should be busy every single week with billable work, because otherwise it is just cash bleeding out. Okay? It is not sustainable for your business. I'm trying to give you good business advice. There's a social aspect to this too. There's a responsibility to your people. What's responsible is being honest with yourself about your situation that you're in. So in general, for most of us, you know, if you're doing 10% of your normal revenue, there's really no need for direct labor inside of your business. And if you remember from last week, some of the sample role charts, org charts that I showed you really didn't have any direct labor until the companies were at a pretty good size. So if you're, you know, under $3 or $4 million worth of business, there's not a lot of direct labor you need on your staff full time, because that $3 or $4 million of business is going to be done pretty much in 16 out of 52 weeks of the year, right? I mean, that's where 80% of it's going to occur. So there's not a lot of full-time direct labor you need in all of that. But you do have work to get done. I get that. We just have to go about it differently. So if demand is, 25% of capacity, like 25% of 2019, which for most of us would be a huge jump in income, there's always going to be demand for gig workers. Right? And that demand is going to increase as the economy comes back and our business comes back. And as demand grows, the rate of hiring employees will grow at a slower pace. And smart companies will retool their profit margin, their profit machine, to run with fewer employees forever. That's my hope for you. I want you to be able to make money all year round so that you can stay in business. So in other words, demand for gig workers is going to explode as our economy returns. And right now, there's gig workers out there waiting for the phone to start ringing, and I've got some messages for you as we get into this webinar. So, you've survived, okay? Now it's time to stabilize. Given the change in the forecast, or my prediction on the change in the forecast, stabilize means to quickly move to your plan C. You need to have that cash flow plan. You need to be working on it all the time. You've got to minimize all those expenses. You're going to have to broaden your services, okay? And I'll show you why here in just a minute. And what we're in now is we're no longer sprinting, trying to get to that first gig and make it to September. We're now in a marathon, which could last another year or more, right? But we can make it. If you've been following what I've been saying, even if you've only done half of what I've talked about, your chances of making it to next year and being able to regrow your business are extremely, extremely high. You're doing the right thing. You have to be persistent. Now, if we just wait for all of this to happen, somebody else is going to take that work, and if all the people that you've had to furlough or let go or lay off, if 25% of them move into the gig economy, which might be a realistic number, they're going to be hungry for work, and they're probably going to sell low day rates to get their calendar moving. And they're going to over deliver because they're used to being an employee with unclear lines between work and life. If you really want to see a fuzzy line between work and life, try being a freelancer for a decade or two. However, this is going to create a false economy. So as you're putting your former staff back in the field and hiring back at below market rates for freelance work, you're creating a false economy. You're creating a subsidy that I'm afraid too many of you are going to pass on to your clients instead of earning more gross profit for yourself so that you can keep your cash flow going longer, right? As a professional gig worker, you have to redouble your efforts to appear professional. If you're going to be a freelancer, if you are a freelancer, you need to be even more professional than you've ever imagined, okay? You need to position your services and do it consistently. You're actually going to have to promote. You're going to have to market. There's a blog post I want to share with you. I'll put it in the replay page right after this webinar as soon as I upload the video. So you've got the link to the replay page. I usually put a few extra links in there. One of them is a blog that's going to be delivered to everybody else next week. You get it now. It's a letter from a freelancer. It's very moving. I want to share it with you. I want you to understand what a true professional freelancer, how they look at the world, and what you should aspire to be if you're a freelancer, or what you should aspire to hire if you're an employer. One of the elephants in the room is resentment. One of the challenges in the gig economy, and I work with a lot of business owners, is many of you have told me, and maybe not directly, but certainly in your body language, that you resent the fact that other people make money off of your work. And that, if you have to pay a freelancer twice what you have to pay an employee, you resent that. But at the same time, when you're not paying for that freelancer, you resent the fact that you pay that employee when they're not doing any work because you pay them 12 months out of the year. So which is it? Okay. Resentment goes both ways. I see resentment from the hiring company and from the workers. I see resentment from your employees for the rates that freelancers make because they don't understand the economics of it. Hiring companies that shop on price and hire the less expensive freelancers, and then they pass that savings on to their customer. In other words, they sell on price. are exactly the kind of companies that hurt our industry. It's not the discounts on your equipment that are hurting our industry. It's the discounts on labor that you're making that are hurting our industry. So part of what makes the gig economy work is getting over this resentment, realize that there's value in employees and there's value in the freelance community. We have to pay what that is worth. There is no crime in making a profit. You want the people who pay you to make a profit so they can pay you, okay? You want the people that you pay to make a profit so they will continue to be available for you. And we have to learn how to make money better in the gig economy. And where we make money is in the services that we provide. Now, why haven't we done this in the past? This is one of those we shot ourselves in the foot things. We have some systemic issues with making money in our current business models, or should I say our pre-pandemic business models. What are you competing about? You know, you have the best people, best gear, best whatever. Think about the film industry. Does a producer hire one company to supply all the gear, cinematographers, location experts, or do they assemble a team, right? The more localized the production, the fewer companies that you need to be hired, because there's going to be companies there that can service parts and pieces of it. And if you are a regional business, your value to that buyer is your accessibility in that region. But if you're a gear supplier, the value to the buyer is your depth of inventory. If I'm producing a film in Dallas, Texas, if I can get all the gear I need from one supplier who happens to be in Dallas, Texas, why wouldn't I hire them? But if they only have part of what they need, why wouldn't I deal with somebody who has everything I need who might actually have to ship it in? And if you're a specialized skill, then region and equipment don't matter to the buyer. All that matters is your specialty. Okay? Staff, equipment, and transport are secondary advantages that we have that don't necessarily matter to the buyer, right? So anyone can outsource, right? So what is the advantage of having these resources in-house in your business? It might save you money and time, but having more than what you need is irrational and frankly not smart business. So here's the situation on your screen. We have a lot of redundancy in our industry. If I take 5 of you and you're all in the same production space, you all have people, you all have equipment, you all have transport, you'll do a show anywhere, you have duplicated talent, gear, and geography in the customer's eyes. Therefore, there's excess supply. Their demand is going to drive your price down. And they don't have to shop for all of you, because all they need to know is that you're insecure about the excess capacity that you have. Therefore, you're going to sell on price. As an industry, we've created excess supply because all of us have gone out there and hired our people and tried to create this bubble of resources where you can have a one-stop shop. And sometimes that has value, okay? Other times it's just serving to lower our margins. So let's think about the value chain a little bit, right? Where is value actually created? You know, in our old system, we created value in anticipation of demand. In other words, we have employees, we have inventory, we have systems, we have packaged products, but we also kind of did this out of necessity. The need was to be able to respond quickly and price competitively and know that we would have the resource that would protect the margin that we think we sold the job at. And the result has been, of course, tremendous redundancy, which has driven margins down. So our resource pool, our tech, gear, design, all the things that we do, which we might bring into our company to localize it. The aggregators of events are the buyers and the sellers. I have an event, I need you to help me put it together. We bring the buyer and the seller together, usually through the seller. They bring in the resource pool and then they conduct the event. Okay? None of that really changes in what I'm talking about in the gig economy, except where does that tech work after the event? And if they go back to your warehouse and clean cable, that's a different cost basis. And I'm saying that's the thing that we can't really afford to pay for, because if they're a good tech, they are more expensive than somebody who cleans cable. If they are only worth what somebody who cleans cable is, they are probably not a good tech. So I have the wrong person at the wrong price point doing the wrong job in that scenario. And that is what clients are, they see that, but it's also driving your price down. Now, not all buyers are looking for the same thing. And as I talked about that previous scenario, you're thinking of all the times that that was not true, and that's what you're supposed to do. Not all buyers are looking for the same thing. Every project is different. The same buyer can have different needs on different projects. So think about locations, resources, and quality. When location is the most important thing for a buyer, and here's how it looks to me. You guys, one of you is going to send me an email and say, hey, Tom, I've got a show in, you know, such and such city. Do you know somebody there? That's a location question. I want a local supplier. Why? Because I think it's going to be less expensive. I think it maybe is more responsive, whatever. When location comes first for the buyer, then resources are their secondary need. So if you're exactly where I need, next thing I want to know is, do you have the right resources for my need? And then the third thing is, are you a good value? So all things being equal, you're in the right place, you have the right resources, which one is the best value? So location will get us to a price point, but if you're the only one in the location, then you have some control over the price point, because location, being exactly where you need, has the highest value for that buyer. And very often we'll pay more for the right local supplier than run the risk of bringing somebody in and added the added expense and travel and risk of getting people there, particularly in the current climate where travel is problematic. Now, when your depth of resources matter, I mean, do you have the right stuff and enough of it? You know, one-stop shopping, do you have 1,000 panels of this LED? You know, then quality becomes a secondary consideration and location becomes a tertiary consideration. They have the right stuff, it is good quality, I don't really care where they are, get them. They have the right stuff, their quality is not good, who else can we find and how far away are they? So look at what's valuable to the customer, and then if quality is all that matters, okay, then only the best will do, right? And assuming you can get that resource where it needs to be, everything's good. And if they have a specialization, that's just a bonus. If what you need is a specialization, then we assume we can get them where we need. We assume they do the best work, right? Or it is a minimum requirement that as a specialist, you are only valuable if you can go where the work is and you are that good, right? Buyers want a 3-for-3 fit, but they're also going to fit in order. So I'll put this chart up on the replay page so that you can reference it and talk about it in your report. This is very important to know when you are trying to position yourself or your company when work is scarce, like right now. This is very important right now. So understand what it means and apply it to your business. Now, here's a couple of things that it does mean for you. It means that you need to be broad in a credible fashion on what you do when you're selling as a location company. You might be, for instance, a projection mapping specialist who can also do full service events. But when you're being contacted because you happen to be in the city where the event is, in other words, location is what matters, your specialization doesn't. What matters is that you know how to do all the things that an event requires. And that's what you got to focus on. So you've got to be very broad when location is the driving decision factor. If you're in the right location, then what you want to be is the best value in that location, which is not the same as the cheapest. So the more you show depth of resources, the better price that you can ask. And if you have the right resource, you need to make it easy to move. And any wholesale B2B supplier will tell you this. What makes their business model work is that they will ship gear anywhere or have offices where gear is easy to access. You've got to remove that hurdle of geography in order to make the deal. So having the right resource, you have to make it easy to move. And if you're best at what you do, then never discount your specialization. I'll give you an example. You are the best E2 operator in the country. You're in Tampa, Florida. Client has a show in Tampa, Florida. They want you on the job because you're the best E2 operator in the country. But you're in Tampa, so you'll charge me less, right? And you don't need a hotel room, you'll stay at home, right? I don't need to pay you per diem because you can bring your lunch, right? Okay. Your specialization is what they hired. Geography was just a distraction, right? Don't discount your specialization. This applies to you as a company, applies to you as a freelancer. If they're buying your specialization, that's where you need to dig in. Most people don't want second best if they know best is available. Now, some trends that are going on here. Obviously, there's a huge number of ex-employees that are entering the gig workforce, and we're losing a lot of great talent to other industries. There's not enough work for all the people who are going to want to move into the gig economy. Some people are going to be good at it. I can tell you from all my decades of experience, there are some people who make really good employees and are lousy freelancers. And there are some people who are really good freelancers and are lousy employees, and there's not many who do both well. So we're going to see some dramatic fails in freelancing. So I want to help you be a better freelancer, but I also want to help you be a better buyer of freelancers. We're going to see we've already seen this trend on centralized payroll and booking services. We know that with all the labor law changes and SB 50 and all the stuff that's going on, and the fact that I am telling you that you need to run with fewer staff, you can still W-2 these people, but you may not want them on your W-2 payroll. You may want to go to a third-party provider, employer of record. We're seeing services where you can select the crew that you want, book them through the platform, and pay them through the platform. Of course, we're going to see pooled crews where you take the crew that you hired and it gets pooled in with the crew that the contractor hired. We're seeing payroll escrowed. In other words, in order to guarantee that the employees get paid, you're going to have to put money into escrow to cover the payroll so that the gig can get done. And if there's any disputes, they will be settled, but we can get people paid. Right now, and I've talked to a lot of staffing companies, 100% of which got left holding the bag by production companies who did not pay them when the crisis hit. They didn't have the cash to do it. They didn't prioritize paying their labor companies. They're not going to make that mistake again. And honestly, in the gig economy, you need them way more than they need you. You're going to have to change the way that you finance the jobs that you crew. We're going to see a lot of professionalization of event technical and management talent, production managers, project managers, TDs, salespeople, freelance salespeople. We're going to see changes in how you book. It's not just booking hourly and day rates. The tour industry has been doing tour rates for a long time. Theater, entertainment, Broadway, everybody has a way of paying people that works better than what we typically do on our project-based, job cost mentality approach to gigs. Okay? There are better ways to buy that are better for both you and the people that you're buying from. So booking people for busy months and putting them on multiple gigs and guaranteeing them minimums is going to be a lot more common, because remember, you have trouble selling if you don't know where the tech is coming from, but you know you're going to be busy and you need to tie up some techs. So that's how a gig economy is going to work, and these trends are taking off, and they're just going to steamroll. They're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So let me give some tips to folks, and I want to start with my veteran freelancer friends, of which I know so many of you. Many of you are able to rest on your laurels, and you have lots of good clients and contacts who right now their business is not going very well. And when they have business again, they'll call you. When that act comes back, the tour is going to hire you. If that client comes around again, maybe you'll get booked, but maybe you won't. You need to be more professional in your marketing appearance. You need a website. It's just plain and simple. You need to have a booking link. You need to have access to your calendar, ways to reach out to you so that somebody can throw your name out and I can find you on the internet and contact you. You need to put stuff on this website. I need to learn something about you from your website. And what do I care about you is, what is your mindset? What's important to you? What do you do in your spare time? Are you a rock climber? Do you work on cars? Do you love to cook? Tell me something about you. Tell me what matters to you and what matters to you professionally. My calling card when I was a freelancer, because I was not a great technician. I was a passing fair technician. I knew enough to pick up the phone before it was a crisis. That was my technical skill set. But what I was really good was looking ahead, figuring out what needed to be done next, making room for the thing that was going to need to be moved, planning 2 or 3 steps ahead. To me, a show was a chess game. And what I was always planning for was the loadout, which meant my backstages looked awesome. So not only did the backstage work really well for the presenters and the crew and the people who needed to get back there during the show, my backstage was already set up for loadout. And the cases were in the right order for access so that we can get them out of the ballroom onto the truck. You know, that was my superpower. That's what my website would talk about. I would have pictures of my backstage. I would talk about my philosophy. I'd have, here's a picture of my plan that I've laid out for the crew about how we're going to do these things. That's what you need to have on your website. I need to get a taste for how you approach your profession. What's the special thing that you bring to the party so that I can relate to you and I can see myself doing business with you before I ever hire you. You need to be more creative about your rates. You don't have to publish your rates. You don't have to put them on your website. You need to know in your mind what your rates are. And you need 3 rates times 3, which if you're in sales, that means 9, right? Location, time, and skill affect your rate. If the company's hiring for location, that's 1 rate. If they're hiring time, that's another rate. If they're hiring you for your skill, that's another rate. Who is hiring you affects your rate. Is it the end user? Is it a middleman? Is it an agency? Where are they in the value chain? How many times is your rate getting marked up? Because the more times they get marked up, the lower your rate's going to need to be to work in that space so the person who is hiring you can make money, because we do not resent people making money on us. That's how it works. So get those rates sorted out and make sure that you don't violate your own channels and give an aggressive end user the agency rate, because now the agency's pissed off because their client just hired you for the same rate that the agency hired you with, and now you're persona non grata. Most of you veteran freelancers know this, but you're going to be seeing a lot of new buyers, lots of new clients, and you're not always going to take the time to think about what channel they're in and where they fit in the food chain. Ask some questions, right? If your skill doesn't matter, but location and time work for you, incessant negotiation is a negative. If they offer you a rate, if it meets your off-the-couch price, negotiating does not do anything for any party. Just take it or leave it. Yes or no, just answer the question. Incessant negotiation is a negative. It makes you look uncooperative. It's easier to say, look, I'd love to, but I am booked. Now, what most of you will say, hey, I'd love to, I'm booked, but why don't you call me when you need this skill set? Which just means that you lied about not being available. You just turned down the gig for that. It's just say yes or no. So no, that's not, thank you for asking. Please keep asking me. That's not my gig, right? Just some little, add a little bit more nuance to your interactions. Now, if you're a new freelancer, and many of you will be, and this is the same tip goes to the old freelancers too. Get a professional email address. A Gmail address is nice, but make sure it's your name and not, Thomas 472 Smith. Find a way to be unique. Buy a domain. Having a company name is really not that important. But if you have one, get a web domain and get your name into a web domain. This makes all the difference in the world. This tells me that you're committed. It makes it easier to remember how to get hold of you. You look more legit. It doesn't cost anything. Just do it. Uh, get some tax advice. Doing W-2 work is your friend. A lot of the old school freelancers, they're going to tell you, no, W-2 is bad. Don't do that. You want to get the whole check, pay your own taxes. You need to incorporate. You need to get your own workman's comp, yada, yada. No, W-2 is your friend. Talk to an accountant, okay? Right now, you want the work. If somebody wants to pay you W-2, take it, okay? I won't even get into the whole fact that you might have to take a drug test or whatever. W-2 is your friend. Figure it out. Check the references when you get contacted. Who referred the buyer, okay? Find out, hey, talk to that reference, say, hey, when do these guys pay? You know, why aren't you doing the gig? Ask a few questions about who's getting hired, who's hiring you. Then the biggest thing is leave your ego at home. You may have been the top tech at your own company. You may be the best person you've ever met at what you're doing. I guarantee you there's lots of people better than you. You just haven't met them yet. Leave your ego at home. When you get out there in the real world and you're out of the staff bubble, you're going to be asked to do things that you didn't have to do before. That's what we do. Be grateful for the work. Do it then. I had one guy say, if they ask you to sweep the floor better than they've ever seen anybody do it before. So leave your ego at home and then be a little bit selective. You're only as good as your last show. You know, try and work with winners. I hate to throw out words like bottom feeder, but there are some folks out there, people who hiring groups that are not very selective about who they hire. Take the opportunity to be selective, but I know you got to put groceries on the table. Now, hiring companies. An excess of supply in the freelance market is not necessarily good for you. If you've got too many choices, you might not be as selective. Be selective, have criteria, which means that you need to plan further ahead. The fact that there's a lot of audio people available that week doesn't mean that the right people are available for you. Plan further ahead. Buying on rate and driving rates down is going to hurt you in the long run. It's going to make people less likely to want to work for you. It's going to make people that you've used, that you beat up on their rate and they did a great job, and now the client wants them back and they're not going to work for that rate again. All right, so you're creating your own problem. So spread work around, but you also need to reward people who do good work for you, right? Deepen your bench. You need to have more people that you can call because they're going to get busy, but be consistent on quality and price. If somebody raises their rate, as I've had that conversation with many freelancers, I said, you can make any rate you want. I will decide whether or not I can afford to pay you your rate. And if you're telling me your rate is $750 a day, I will only call you when I'm willing to pay you $750 a day. You know, it's pretty simple. And be more transparent. You have to provide information for people to do their job well. If you're only used to working with staff technicians and they get to see the worksheet and, you know, drawings and client correspondence and stuff and talk to the customer, you need to do that with your freelance staff as well. If you have trust issues about letting freelancers talk to the right people to do their job, you have a trust issue and you need to work that out, because you cannot leverage a gig economy and have trust issues and be successful. Now, the future. We're looking at a world where we're going to start seeing freelancers on retainer. You're going to say, hey, I need you for, you know, corporate season, January through March. I want to put you on retainer. We're going to see fees based on project, not just on days. We're going to see incentives and bonuses for workers who have, freelancers who have control over costs, certainly project managers. The same things that help motivate employees will also help motivate your gig workers. And so we're going to see a lot of that leveraged out into that world. Now, if you're a hiring company, here's what to look for in a freelancer. Look for somebody who's selling their craft, not just their time. Okay, there are people who are just hourly workers. Again, I apologize, but we often call them neck down labor. If you're just hiring somebody for their body, that's one thing. But if they have a craft, you need a skill set, find somebody who is selling that craft. If they are people who train on their own time and do their own work and maybe own their own gear so they can be better at it, get their own certifications, that has value for you. And you should consider that strongly as an advantage and worth more money. A good freelancer will willingly share what they know with your team, but they are not responsible for teaching your team how to do their job. Okay. If you've seen them share it with other companies, that also increases their value and their worth. That freelancer is more valuable to you. You know, two rates being equal, that person's more valuable. If that rate's a little bit higher, they still might be more valuable, right? If they want to be involved in prep and planning, that is not extra work for you. That is less work for you. You've got the mindset incorrect. You're doing something wrong if them helping you with prep and planning gets in your way. So you want somebody who wants to review the order, that wants to join in the meetings, happy to do some pre-production on that. They need to carry their own tools and accessories to support their craft. They are there to support the project with that. There is not a rental tag on it. If they brought it, they intend to use it. And they respect the channel. This goes beyond, just not handing out your business card to a client. But if they have tiered fees, that's a bonus. Now, I've been an advocate in the past of, one freelancer, one price. For me as a buyer, I want your price. Doesn't matter what I hire you to do. I want to pay you the same price. But if they have tiered fees for the channel, and they can say, look, when the producer calls me, I charge this, but you're working for the producer, so I'll charge you this. That means a lot to me. That means that they understand my business and respect my need to make money, and that's valuable to me. Now, if you're a freelancer and what are you looking for in a hiring company? Employers, pay attention. Standardized pay schedule. I want weekly, bi-weekly, not, send me your invoice. We pay everybody net 30 or net 10 or whatever it is. Stop doing net payment on labor. Okay. Pay them on a regular schedule. If you get your invoice in by Thursday, we cut checks on Monday. That goes a long way. Okay? I would rather work for you than somebody who my invoice is going to go to a salesman, is going to sit on their desk before he gives it to accounting, who then's going to put it in net 30, and I got to chase you for money. I don't want to work with you. Okay, standardized pay schedule. A hiring company should want you and allow you to be involved in pre-production. They should let you bill for it. As a matter of fact, they say, what will you charge me? Here's the scope of the show. We have some pre-pro. What's your pre-pro fee? That's a great conversation to have. If they treat staff and freelancer as peers, in other words, if you just see no difference between how they treat a staff technician on show site and a freelance technician on show site, that's a bonus. If they treat one as a second-class citizen or one's emergency as less important as another person's emergency, that's kind of a deal breaker for me. A bonus if the company always puts the show first. And I know you all say you put the show first. If you did, you would treat staff and freelancers as peers. So that's why I use that as the criteria. If they offer training, if a hiring company offers training, that's valuable to you as a freelancer. You don't have to take it. But if they value the fact that you've had training accomplishments and they think that's important, then that helps me want to do business with them. And then loyalty. They got to be good for repeat business. They don't resent the freelance cost. If the client asks for you back, they should book you, right? That would be ideal. And guess what? In the gig economy, it's going to be much easier to do that because they don't have a staff person that they're going to slide in there or hire another person to get that work out of your hands. You're an expensive gold digger. No, they're going to go, great. The client likes this guy. Book him again, right? Some universal gig truths. Dance with the one that brought you. Don't gig poach. This goes both ways, okay? Don't give away the gig that somebody was just really great at to somebody else. And don't steal gigs from your client. Failure reflects on everyone, okay? You have to set each other up for success. Set people up for success. Anybody that fails is a failure to the show, which hurts me. It hurts my heart. So this is true. The show must go on. There are bad freelancers and there are bad hiring companies. Being selective is the only way to deal with it. Grousing about it, shaming people on Facebook is not the way to do it. Just be selective about who you work with and who you recommend. And that makes all the difference in the world. We're going to get some questions here. We're going to run a little bit long today, but I love this topic, so I don't mind taking some extra time. If you have to hop off, I understand. That's why we record these things. I got to talk about horse-assisted dismount. For those of you who are not horse people, that means you got thrown. If you're a horse people, we call it a horse-assisted dismount. When my wife used to ride quite extensively until she had too many horse-assisted dismounts, and I think we still own a horse. What we learned in the years when we were first horse owners, and I took riding lessons, and she took a lot of riding lessons. The old horse people will tell us you need to be thrown 10 times to be an experienced rider. And then somebody else would disagree and say it was 12, and somebody say, no, it's only 8. The fact of the matter is you're going to get thrown a lot to become experienced. So likewise, you're going to get burned by employers, and employers are going to pick the wrong freelancers, and only experience stops the cycle. The longer you do this, the more times you get burned, the less often you're going to get burned in the future, because every time it happens, it makes you smarter. So get out there and dance and trip sometimes, but keep dancing. You know, that's the game. That's the way it played. And we're going to do more of it in this gig economy. So the next week, we're going to talk about the agency model. And fear and trepidation for many of you, because your clients are agents, and how could you be an agency if they're an agency? Trust me, you're already an agency. I'm going to show you why, but I'm going to show you how to do it. This works for the big players. It's going to work for you. If you're down to 2 or 3 employees, or maybe you're just by yourself and all your employees are gone, you need to watch this. You are an agency. If you're down to 8 employees, because you used to be 150, guess what? You're an agency. You're all agencies now. In the gig economy, we're all agencies. So email me some questions if you have about this in advance, things that you want to make sure that I talk about, and I will weave them in there. Let me remind you that I'm here to help. If you would like some time with me to process these crazy ideas I'm putting in your head. I had a great conversation today with somebody who had trouble with value-based proposals, and we talked through it. I'm happy to do that with you. I love teaching what I know and sharing with you. We're going into a new era here. I asked you to only book one time with me, but we can do another round. So we got another month of these webinars. Let's do another round of Let Me Help. Please book that time. I expect to talk to many of you next week. And then, is your business where it should be now? If you're having trouble, if you think there's a lot of things that you need to work on, or a management team you need to bring around the corner, I will do micro coaching with you. I'll do short coaching engagements to help you meet that need. Happy to do that. Give me a call. Let's chat about that. So let me wander to the questions, and let me scroll up here to see where they may have started and see what we can do for you. Roberto asks, how do you differentiate between time and location rate? So a time rate is when your people are booking you by the hour or the day rate, and what they're really looking at is what is your time worth, which means that they've already settled the location thing. The fact is that is your location. The time rate means your skill set is probably not the highest priority. There may be a lot of people with that skill set, and it's simply a negotiating point. Location, to me, generally has more value because there are costs in moving people in. So if people are only buying your time, that's probably your lowest rate. If they're buying your location, it's your time plus a premium for being in the right place at the right time. I hope that answers your question. Hello, hello, hello. New York, South Africa. And Texas. Some staffing companies. Thank you guys for being here. All right. Lots of comments here. Get some questions. Yeah, boo on those companies that don't pay their vendors well, and specifically if they don't pay their labor suppliers, double boo on them. So take care of your folks. You're going to need them. Comment here says we're able to pay out bonuses to techs and engineers because the client felt they went above and beyond. Team was also very humble. Yes, we love to have gig workers that the client likes. That is long-term employment. That means long-term employment from that client. Yeah, you can build you put together a good team, you're gonna have a good relationship with the client. That's what the client's paying you for. You know, remember going back to that chart about, you know, the buyer and the seller as an aggregator. You know, that buyer could go out and hire all those resources directly themselves, but the fact of the matter is they don't want to. You're better at it. That's what they're paying you to do. I could build a house, but I'll probably hire a contractor and have them do it instead, because there's too many people involved. So I don't understand that question. On the future of gig economy, how do you envision project-based fees for freelance working? So in project management, we've seen project-based fees for quite a while. And sometimes the project-based fee in project management is based on the value of the gig, but very often it's based on the perceived amount of pre-pro involved in doing it, how many drawings you're going to need, how many departments or crew people there are, which tells a professional project manager how much work they're actually going to have to do. In which case, they're going to look at the job and saying, well, for all that pre-production work that I can do on my own time, the value is X. And then there is the event work that I have to do at a specific time, and it's tying me up, and there's not much else I can do. That fee is this. And they take those two fees and they put them together and say, yeah, I can do this job for $10,000, but here are the things that might be additional costs. There's no reason that you can't hire an audio designer, a front of house engineer under the same terms, a video director, a projectionist, and just do a flat rate or a flat rate with some overtime in there. So yeah, we'll see more of that. You know, if you look at touring rates, very often it's a week rate. We know what touring life is. However, if your tour schedule means that you work 3 16-hour days in a row, have one day off, and then work 4 16-hour days in a row, that might affect the rate I'm willing to go out on. So again, you have to be transparent with people. If you want to get the best price and the best value, the more information you're willing to share, the better chance you're going to have of doing that. All right. Comment here, while much of this week's update was bad news, yet the info Tom brought forward was very valuable. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. Tom, you seem to be bullish about the freelance employee having the advantage in the coming gig economy. My senior management team thinks the opposite. Gig labor is going to be plentiful and the employer should be able to dictate market rates. How do you work against this belief from the folks in charge? Have them watch the video. Have the industry expert with 40 decades of experience tell them the same thing that you told them, and maybe they'll listen to me. I don't know what else to tell you. That's a horrible, horrible attitude. It's a horrible mindset in that. Yeah, there are some advantages to buying in the current market. It's gonna come back and bite you. Here's the thing. I work with companies all the time that complain about their labor force, the freelance market. The typical thing they'll tell me is, well, oh, there's no freelancers in our community. We have to have full-time staff because we have to train them ourselves because we can't get good freelancers. And 100% of the time when I look at their situation, what I find is they do not pay enough for freelancers to get the good people. They get the people who have no experience, have no resume, have no talent, because they fit the price. They buy on price, and so they get what they pay for. And when they find out what a real talent for the job that they're doing is, or what their staff person would be worth in the freelance market, which should scare the crap out of some of you business owners, you know, they're worth a lot more as a freelancer. They're worth at least twice what your hourly rate is as an employee. If you're cutting their hours by 25 or 40% because of the economy, they only have to work half of that to make the same money as a freelancer. So a lot of this is just math. So I've found some very powerful people who aren't very good at math, but good luck with that. Feel free to share this webinar with them. Comment here says, I already see some freelancers moving out of the AV world and looking for other type of work. Yeah, I have too. I've seen a lot of very uncomfortable retirement parties. Some reluctant retirees that are leaving our industry, and it's a shame. We're going to lose some good talent. So another comment here, sometimes the gig changes scope. The production company needs to take care of the project-based PM or tech, do what is right. Everybody wins in the end. Yeah, the whole idea that, hey, the gig went away and the work that you did is no longer has any value is anathema. It's spec work. I encourage you to reduce your overhead and not pay for work that you don't need. If you hire somebody to work on a gig and that gig doesn't happen, you still need to pay them for the work that they've done. The upside is you didn't have to pay them to work year round. So sometimes we hire people for non-billable work, maybe not intentionally, but that's how it turns out. I had this conversation with an owner yesterday saying, well, there's just 3 of us here at the, 3 owners here at the company. That's all that left. And we need to clean the warehouse. I said, well, hire somebody to clean the warehouse. Well, you mean bring an employee back? I don't care if it's an employee. Contract someone to work. Oh, contract someone to work in the warehouse, right? Change some of our mindsets, right? We have a gig economy out there. The world is our Uber. Let's see. Do you suggest replacing a furloughed now soon to become retrenched technician? Do you suggest replacing with a salesperson to help push new business? This can sound a little harsh. I don't think salespeople can do anything to help your business right now. Most of our salespeople are order takers, and there are no orders coming in. There's lots of inquiries to understand what's going on. I would suggest that right now, more than half of the proposals that you're writing aren't actually proposals. We're just teaching the client what they need to know to decide whether or not they need to have an event. So we're writing a lot of proposals we shouldn't write, because what we should be having is a conversation with the customer to understand their needs, educate them, and give them enough information to go back and make a good decision for themselves and their event. So salespeople aren't necessarily what I need, but I might hire a contract salesperson to work in a particular channel or segment and pay them a heavy commission for business that they bring in. Nothing wrong with that. You have nothing to lose in that situation as long as that person represents you well. Thank you. Yeah, family and I are doing well. We are very well quarantined. I buy the groceries, and my wife buys the dog food, and we're the only ones that really leave the house. So thank you for that. We're sick of it too, and I hate wearing a mask, but by God, I will not leave here without one, and I would not go into any place of business or even in a parking lot without wearing a mask. It's just not fair to other people. There are plenty of us freelancers out here who are experts at our positions. Yes, we have been in the biz for many years and bring a lot of experience to your shows. You absolutely do, and I want more and more people to understand and value that and quit thinking that you're the enemy. I've never understood that mentality, but it's out there, and I do run into it far more than I'm happy to say. I think I got one more question here. Sorry, we've run a little bit over. All right, I think the comment on our graduation, all of our crews were amazing. So happy to be working. I bet they are. We'd all be happy to be working, right? Every time I see pictures of people on show site, there you can see them all smiling through their masks. It's great. We were able to pay full rates and paid all techs on the spot after the strike was complete. Good for you. I love that touch. We used our EIDL money while we wait 20 days for payment. Good, that's what it's for. It's financing your cash flow. Even with all the subs, we cleared a good profit, and that means you priced it right. So good for you. I'm proud of you. That's exactly the way it's supposed to work. Price things the way they're supposed to be priced. Don't resent the fact that you have to pay people. You will make better gross profit if you look at the world that way. I'm on a roll. Here's one more question. What are your thoughts on when to pay a gig worker if a client cancels? Timeline, as quickly as you would pay anybody, right? We want the clients to pay as you go, so some money is covered because of that. If the gig cancels, there's a little bit of time to maybe replace the gig, except we know right now we don't have work to replace it. I would pay them on the same timeline as the gig, and I think that's maybe the question you're asking. So if we say, hey, I've booked you, I committed to you, I will pay you a cancellation. If the gig cancels a week out, so I owe you, 2 days out of 5 for cancellation. I would pay them when the gig would have been over, or, let them get their invoice in, process it. It all comes about the same amount of time. So yeah, hired my 2 best freelancers for 3 days next week. And it's nice to see them again. It's nice that everybody gets to have the work. And I'm excited about that part of our business starting to come back. some quality time with people that we miss. And I hope more of it happens. I've been very nostalgic the past couple of weeks for the old show days and my old show crew, and sitting backstage for hours and hours and hours with not a damn thing to do, and arguing about stuff with my buddies. And we'd all like to get back to that, and we will. But I want us to do it with better businesses, a better business model where everybody is valued in the system, that our value chain makes more sense, and more importantly, that your business is scalable and that you can make money year round instead of the 2 or 3 months of the year when you have too much work. Having said that, thank you again for your time and attention today and for your questions. Like I said, we've got 4 more of these to go. Next week, we're going to talk about the agency. I remind you to keep managing your expectations. Hope doesn't pay the bills. Planning does. So do everything you can to make your planning pay off for your business. Get that cash flow runway extended as far as you can, for as long as you can. That's the game we're all in. Be well, be safe. I'll have the recording up here shortly, and we'll see you next week. Have a safe holiday weekend. Cheers.